Her husband brought his mistress to her birthday, but one look at her in a red dress, and he begged for a night with her. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories. Please pause and hear this with your heart. I love you more than you know. You are not just watching a story, you are the reason I tell them. Your presence is my blessing, your support is my strength. If you're hearing me right now, I'm asking you with all my heart. Please comment, I'm here, and like this video, not tomorrow, not later, right now. Let me see my family shining like you always do. You are not forgotten. You are not just part of my journey. You are the light guiding it. You are my pride, my joy, my reason. Now please receive this prayer wrapped in endless love. May today greet you with gentle peace. May your heart be held in warmth, your family surrounded by protection, and your soul kissed by joy. May every burden feel lighter, and may love find you wherever you are. You are seen, you are safe, you are so deeply loved. Let's begin, united in love, covered in grace, and standing strong as one family. The Manhattan skyline glittered against the night sky, a perfect backdrop for the woman who stood watching it from the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse apartment. Terrian Walker traced her slender finger along the cool glass, her reflection revealing deep brown eyes that had grown accustomed to loneliness. At 35, she possessed a quiet elegance that turned heads whenever she entered a room, not that her husband noticed anymore. Mrs. Wilson? The housekeeper's gentle voice interrupted her thoughts. Mr. Wilson called. He said not to wait up. Another late meeting. Terrian nodded, her expression carefully neutral. Thank you, Maria. You can go home now. When the elevator doors closed, Terrian kicked off her heels and padded across the Italian marble floor to the kitchen. She poured herself a glass of red wine and took a long sip. 5 years ago, Spencer had surprised her with this penthouse as a wedding gift, a beautiful cage with a view. The irony wasn't lost on her. Before meeting Spencer Wilson, Terrian Walker had been an up-and-coming architect with bold designs and even bolder ambitions. Now, her blueprints collected dust in the home office she rarely used, sacrificed for cocktail parties with Spencer's clients and charity galas where she played the role of the supportive wife to perfection. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jade, her best friend since college. Still on for lunch tomorrow, need to show you birthday dress options. XO. Terrian smiled. Her birthday was in 3 days. And despite Spencer's increasing emotional distance, she was determined to make it special. Perhaps a romantic dinner would rekindle whatever they had lost between board meetings and business trips. She texted back quickly. Absolutely. Noon at Verite. Need your opinion on something too. That something was the design proposal she'd been secretly working on for months. A community center in her old Brooklyn neighborhood. After years of putting her career on hold, Terrian was ready to step back into the world of architecture, with or without Spencer's blessing. She finished her wine and wandered into their bedroom, opening the closet to reveal Spencer's precisely organized suits. Running her fingers along the expensive fabric, she caught a faint scent that didn't belong to him, or her, a subtle, floral perfume. Not the first time she'd noticed it. Terrian pulled back her hand as if burned. How long had she been ignoring? The signs, the late nights, the weekend conferences, the distracted kisses, and the dwindling intimacy. Spencer Wilson, hedge fund wunderkind, and her husband of 5 years, was pulling away, or perhaps had never been fully present. Her phone rang, and for a moment her heart leapt, thinking it might be Spencer. Instead, his executive assistant's name flashed on the screen. "Hello, Bethany," Terrian answered, keeping her voice light. "Mrs. Wilson, I'm confirming Mr. Wilson's schedule for your birthday dinner. He's reserved 11 Madison Park at 7, but he has a meeting that might run until 6:30. Will that timing work for you?" Terrian closed her eyes. Grateful Bethany couldn't see her disappointment. Even on her birthday, Spencer's work took precedence. "That's fine, Bethany. Thank you for arranging it." After hanging up, Tyrion walked to her own side of the closet and pulled out a garment bag she'd hidden at the back. Inside was a dress she'd purchased months ago, a stunning red silk creation that hugged every curve of her body. She'd been saving it for a special occasion, hoping it might remind Spencer of the passionate woman he'd fallen in love with. The next morning, Tyrion awoke to find Spencer's side of the bed untouched. She checked her phone. No calls, no messages, no explanation. This wasn't unusual anymore, but it still stung. She showered and dressed for her lunch with Jade, choosing a simple black dress that contrasted beautifully with her deep brown skin. At Verite, Jade was already waiting, her bright smile a welcome sight. "He didn't come home again?" Jade asked, reading Tyrion's expression instantly. "Is it that obvious?" Tyrion sighed, sliding into her seat. "Only to someone who knows you're married to the world's most self-absorbed workaholic," Jade replied, squeezing her hand. "But enough about him. Let's talk about your birthday plans and this community center design you've been hiding from everyone." Their conversation flowed easily, as it always did. But Tyrion couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was about to change in her life. She didn't yet know it would begin with a red dress and end with a decision that would alter everything. As she walked back to her office, a small space she'd rented without telling Spencer, Tyrion's phone buzzed with a text. "Spencer, finally. Added a guest to our dinner. Important client. Wear something impressive. Love you." The casual addition of a business associate to what should have been an intimate celebration was so typically Spencer that Tyrion couldn't even... He feels surprised, just hollow, empty. She texted back a simple "okay" and continued walking, unaware that in Midtown her husband was selecting jewelry for a woman who wasn't his wife. At Wilson Capital Management, Spencer Wilson leaned back in his leather chair, watching Elise Morgan present quarterly projections with a confidence that had first attracted him to her. Tall, blonde, and razor-sharp, Elise had joined the firm a year ago and quickly become indispensable, in more ways than one. "Any questions, Mr. Wilson?" she asked, her blue eyes meeting his with a knowing look. "None at all, Miss Morgan. Your presentation was thorough as always," Spencer replied, dismissing the other team members with a nod. When the door closed, Elise perched on the edge of his desk, her skirt riding up slightly. "Will your wife mind that I'm crashing her birthday dinner?" Spencer ran his hand along her thigh absently. "Tyrion never minds anything. That's what makes her the perfect wife." "And what makes me?" Elise asked, her voice honey-sweet with a hint of venom. Spencer pulled her closer. "The perfect distraction." Neither noticed Bethany watching through the glass wall of the conference room, her expression troubled as she sent Tyrion the dinner confirmation text. Later that evening, Tyrion sat in her studio space, the community center blueprint spread before her. The design was bold, a three-story structure with flowing curves and abundant natural light, a stark contrast to the boxy buildings that dominated the neighborhood. It was the most ambitious project she'd undertaken since graduating at the top of her class from Columbia's architecture program. "What would that bright-eyed graduate think of me now?" she whispered to the empty room. That young woman had believed in her talent, had dreams of changing city skylines. Now she was known primarily as Spencer Wilson's wife, the elegant hostess, who wore designer clothes and supported all the right charities. Her phone buzzed with a reminder, "Birthday dinner tomorrow, 7 p.m. Tyrion stared at it, then glanced at the garment bag hanging on her office door. The red dress waited inside, like a promise she'd made to herself. That night, as Tyrion lay alone in their bed, reviewing her community center plans, she made a decision. She would wear the red dress to her birthday dinner, not for Spencer, but for herself. It was time to remember who Tyrion Walker was before she became Mrs. Spencer Wilson. It was time to break free from her gilded cage. Chapter 2. Birthday Betrayal. The restaurant hummed with subdued conversation and the gentle clink of fine china as Terrian sat alone at the table for three, checking her watch for the fourth time. 7:30. Spencer was running late as usual. She'd chosen to wear a sophisticated black dress for now, the red one carefully packed in her oversized handbag. Her plan was to change after dinner, when they would be alone. "Mrs. Wilson?" The maitre d' approached with practiced deference. "Your husband called. He'll be arriving in 15 minutes with his guest. May I bring you another glass of champagne while you wait?" "Yes, thank you," Terrian replied, with the practiced smile she'd perfected over years of waiting for Spencer at social functions. When the champagne arrived, she took a sip and studied the other diners. Other couples leaning towards each other, laughing, connecting. Things she and Spencer rarely did anymore. Her phone vibrated with a text from Jade. "How's the birthday? Dinner going?" Terrian typed back. "Still waiting, he's bringing a client." Jade's response was immediate. "On your birthday? That man needs a reality check. Call me later. Love you." At 7:45, Spencer finally arrived. Terrian's smile froze as she saw who accompanied him. A striking blonde woman in a form-fitting black dress, with legs that seemed endless and the confident stride of someone accustomed to commanding attention. Something in the way Spencer guided her with his hand at the small of her back told Terrian everything she needed to know. "Terrian, darling, sorry we're late." Spencer bent to kiss her cheek, his cologne mingling with a scent Terrian recognized. "In from his suits, this is Elise Morgan, our new marketing director. Elise, my wife, Terrian." "Happy birthday, Mrs. Wilson," Elise said smoothly, extending a manicured hand. "Spencer has told me so much about you." Terrian accepted the handshake, noting the expensive bracelet on Elise's wrist, a white gold piece with diamonds that she'd seen in Spencer's desk drawer last week. A business gift, he'd called it when she asked. "Please, call me Terrian," she replied, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. "And thank you, although I must admit Spencer rarely mentions his colleagues to me." A flicker of discomfort crossed Elise's perfect features before she recovered with a practiced laugh. "Well, we've been working very closely on the Meridian acquisition, day and night, really." "I'm sure you have," Terrian said, meeting Spencer's eyes directly for the first time that evening. He looked away first, reaching for the wine list. "Let's order something special," he said, changing the subject. "It's not every day my beautiful wife turns 35. Dinner progressed with excruciating slowness. Spencer and Elise dominated the conversation with inside jokes and stories about clients Terrian had never heard of, despite years of attending business functions with her husband. She observed them with growing clarity, the way Elise touched Spencer's arm when laughing, how he leaned toward her when she spoke, the private smiles they exchanged when they thought Terrian wasn't looking. "I need to use the restroom," Terrian announced after the main course. "Excuse me." In the elegant bathroom, Terrian gripped the marble sink, finally allowing her composed mask to slip. Tears threatened, but she blinked them back, refusing to let her mascara run. The woman in the mirror looked poised and elegant, but her eyes held a storm of hurt and rage. Her phone buzzed. Jade again. "You okay?" Instead of texting back, Terrian called her. "He brought her to my birthday dinner, Jade," she whispered when her friend answered. "His mistress, I'm sure of it." "That bastard," Jade hissed. "Leave. Just walk out right now. I'll meet you wherever." Terrian closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the red dress in her handbag. "No, I have a better idea." She ended the call and pulled out the garment bag, unzipping it to reveal the silky red fabric. With determined movements, Terrian changed out of her black dress and into the red one, applying fresh lipstick to match. The woman who stared back from the mirror now was transformed, powerful, sensual, commanding. "Time to reclaim your birthday, Terrian Walker," she whispered to her reflection. When she returned to the table, the conversation stopped abruptly. Spencer's fork clattered against his plate as he stared at her, his expression a mixture of shock and something else, desire, raw and unfiltered like she hadn't seen from him in years. "Tyrion," he breathed, his voice catching. "Sorry for the delay," she said, sliding back into her seat with newfound confidence. I felt like a change. Elise's expression had soured, her eyes narrowing as she noticed Spencer's reaction. "That's quite a dress," she said, unable to keep the edge from her voice. "Thank you," Tyrion replied coolly. "My husband bought it for me, didn't you, Spencer?" Spencer cleared his throat. Yes, of course." The lie came easily to him, but his eyes never left Tyrion, as if seeing her for the first time in years. The power dynamic at the table shifted palpably. Tyrion took control of the conversation, discussing her community center project with passion that left both Spencer and Elise struggling to keep up. She ordered dessert, her favorite chocolate souffle, and savored every bite while recounting stories from her and Spencer's early days, before Elise, before the distance. "Remember our first apartment, Spencer? That tiny place in Brooklyn with the leaky faucet and the fire escape where we used to have wine under the stars?" Spencer nodded, a flicker of genuine emotion crossing his face. "You made it beautiful. You always could see potential where no one else could." "What a charming story," Elise cut in, clearly uncomfortable with being excluded. "But Spencer, we should discuss the Johnson portfolio before tomorrow's meeting." Tyrion smiled, a predator's smile. "On my birthday dinner, surely business can wait one night." Spencer looked between the two women, trapped between his past and his present. "Elise, Tyrion's right. Let's save work for tomorrow." The cold fury in Elise's eyes almost made Tyrion pity her. Almost. When the check came, Spencer paid with the black card they shared. "Shall we go home?" he asked Tyrion, his voice low and intimate in a way it hadn't been for months. "I think that's best," Tyrion replied, gathering her things and standing. The red dress caught the light, highlighting every curve. "It was enlightening to meet you, Elise." Outside, as the valet brought their car around, Spencer placed his hand on the small of Tyrion's back, just as he had done with Elise earlier. "You look incredible tonight," he murmured. "That dress, do you like it?" Tyrion asked, pulling away slightly. "I've been saving it." "For what?" Spencer asked, his eyes dark with wanting. "For when I needed to remember who I am," she replied, sliding into the passenger seat of his Bentley. The drive home was charged with tension, Spencer's eyes constantly flickering to her in the red dress. He reached for her hand, but Tyrion gazed out the window, watching the city lights blur past. In the elevator to their penthouse, Spencer moved closer. "Tyrion," he whispered, his breath warm against her neck. "I've missed you." Tyrion turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Have you, Spencer, have you really missed me? Or did you just notice me tonight, because another man at the restaurant couldn't take his eyes off me in this dress?" Spencer looked genuinely startled. "What? No, The elevator doors opened to their penthouse, cutting him off. Tyrion stepped. Out first, the red dress aflame against the minimalist white decor Spencer had insisted upon when they moved in. "Tyrion, please." Spencer followed her, reaching for her arm. "It's your birthday. Let me make it special." She turned to face him, years of suppressed emotions rising to the surface. "The way you made dinner special by bringing your mistress?" Spencer's face paled. "Elise is a colleague." "Don't." Tyrion interrupted, her voice deadly quiet. "Don't insult my intelligence on top of everything else. I know Spencer. I've known for months." As the truth hung in the air between them, Spencer Wilson watched his wife walk away. The red dress, a statement he couldn't ignore, and a warning he should have heeded long ago. Chapter 3. The Sisterhood Forms. The morning after her birthday, Tyrion awoke alone. Again. Spencer had retreated to the guest room after their confrontation, claiming he needed to think. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the red dress draped over a chair where she'd left it, a battle flag of sorts. Tyrion reached for her phone and saw 3 missed calls from Jade and a text. "Call me the second you wake up." "I'm worried." She dialed her friend while padding to the kitchen to make coffee. "I'm alive," she said when Jade answered. "Thank God," Jade exhaled. "I've been imagining you either murdering Spencer or having wild makeup sex all night." "Which was it?" Despite everything, Tyrion laughed. "Neither, but I did confront him about Elise, and he denied it, of course." Tyrion sipped her coffee, staring at the Manhattan skyline. "But his face when I walked back to the table in that red dress. Jade, you should have seen it. It was like he was actually seeing me for the first time in years." "Good. Let him suffer," Jade declared. "What's your next move?" Tyrion considered the question. "I need to get my things from his office. The community center designs. I have a meeting with potential investors next week, and the originals are in my desk there." "Are you sure that's wise? Going to his territory right now? I'm done hiding." "Jade. Besides, he'll be in meetings all morning." His assistant Bethany confirmed it when she texted to apologize about last night. "His assistant texted you? About what?" "She didn't say explicitly, but I think she knows about Elise. The text just said, 'I'm so sorry about dinner, Mrs. Wilson. Mr. Wilson has back-to-back meetings until 2 p.m. tomorrow if you need anything from the office.'" "Interesting," Jade mused. "Well, call me when you're done there. And Tyrion, wear something killer." 2 hours later, Tyrion strode through the gleaming lobby of Wilson Capital Management, dressed in a tailored white pantsuit that contrasted beautifully with her dark skin. The receptionist recognized her immediately. "Mrs. Wilson, we weren't expecting you today. Just picking up some personal items," Tyrion replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Don't mind me." The elevator carried her to the executive floor, where Spencer's corner office dominated the space. As the wife of the CEO, she had access to most areas, though she rarely visited. The last time had been months ago for a company holiday party, where Spencer had kept her at his side like an accessory. Bethany looked up as Tyrion approached, relief visible on her face. "Mrs. Wilson, thank you for coming during his meeting time." The slight hesitation told Tyrion everything. "Thank you for the heads up, Bethany. I won't be long." "Actually," Bethany lowered her voice, glancing around nervously, "there's something you should know." Before she could continue, the door to Spencer's office opened, and a stunning woman with caramel-colored skin and a French accent stepped out, adjusting her skirt. "Tell Spencer I'll see him in Paris next week," she told Bethany, not noticing. Tyrion at first. When she turned and saw Tyrion, the woman froze. "Mrs. Wilson," Bethany said awkwardly, "this is Dominique Laurent, our European investment liaison." "Dominique, this is Mrs. Wilson, Spencer's wife." Recognition flashed in Dominique's dark eyes. "His wife? But I thought—" She stopped abruptly. "You thought what?" Tyrion asked, her voice dangerously soft. Dominique glanced at Bethany, who looked as though she wanted to disappear. "Perhaps we should speak privately," Dominique suggested, gesturing to a nearby conference room. Once inside, Dominique closed the door and turned to Tyrion. "I apologize for my reaction. Spencer told me his marriage was over in all but paperwork, that you had an arrangement." The familiar pain of betrayal twisted in Tyrion's chest, but this time it was accompanied by something else, fury, cold and clarifying. "There's no arrangement. There never was." Dominique's perfectly shaped brows drew together. "That bastard. I've been seeing him for almost a year, whenever he comes to Paris." "A year," Tyrion repeated, thinking of all the European business trips Spencer had taken. "Did you know about Elise Morgan, too, the marketing director?" Dominique looked genuinely shocked. "Non, I had no idea." She studied Tyrion for a moment. "You are very calm for a woman discovering her husband's infidelities." "I found out about Elise last night when he brought her to my birthday dinner," Tyrion replied, the absurdity of it suddenly hitting her. A laugh escaped her, tinged with bitterness. "And now I find out about you. How many others, I wonder?" Dominique's expression shifted from confusion to anger. "Your birthday? Le salaud?" She reached into her designer bag and pulled out a business card. "I'm at the plaza until tomorrow. Call me. I think perhaps we have much to discuss, non?" After Dominique left, Tyrion entered Spencer's office. The space reeked of his expensive cologne and power, all dark wood and leather, with views of Central Park. She went straight to her desk in the corner, a small space allotted to her for the rare occasions when she needed to work during Spencer's events. As she collected her blueprints, Tyrion noticed Spencer's laptop was open. He never left it unlocked, or so she thought. Moving closer, she saw that his email was open, showing an exchange with Elise from the night before. "Last night was a disaster. My wife suspects something. We need to be more careful." Elise's response made Tyrion's blood boil. "Then get rid of that bracelet I left in your car before she finds it too, and make a decision, Spencer. I'm tired of being your secret." Tyrion took out her phone and snapped photos of the emails, scrolling to find more. There were dozens between Spencer and Elise, and when she searched for Dominique's name, dozens more appeared. Methodically, she documented everything, her architect's mind cataloguing and organizing the evidence of her husband's betrayal. A soft knock on the door startled her. Bethany entered, looking uncomfortable. "Mrs. Wilson, I feel terrible about all this. How long have you known?" Tyrion asked, not unkindly. She understood being caught between loyalty and morality. "About Elise, since it started about 6 months ago. Dominique's been longer. And there's at least one more, Vanessa in the legal department." Bethany wrung her hands. "I wanted to tell you, but my job—" "I understand," Tyrion assured her. "But I need to ask, why now? Why tell me today?" Bethany's expression hardened. "Last night, when he made me arrange your birthday dinner and then add Elise to the reservation, it was cruel. And the way he looked at you when you returned in that red dress, like he suddenly remembered you exist. Something in me just snapped." Tyrion nodded, gathering her blueprints and the evidence. "Thank you, Bethany. I won't forget this." "What will you do?" Bethany asked softly. "First, I'm going to talk to Vanessa in legal," Tyrion replied with newfound determination. "Then I think I'll be having tea with Dominique at the plaza." As she walked toward the elevator, a woman with short dark hair and intelligent eyes approached her. "Mrs. Wilson, I'm Vanessa Chen from legal. Bethany called me. I think we need to talk." 2 hours later, Tyrion sat in the elegant tea room of the Plaza Hotel with Dominique and Vanessa, sharing the evidence she'd gathered from Spencer's email. The 3 women could not have looked more different. Tyrion with her architectural elegance, Dominique with her Parisian sophistication, and Vanessa with her sharp corporate polish, but they were united by a common thread of betrayal. He told me his wife was cold and career-obsessed, Vanessa said, shaking her head, that you lived separate lives. He told me she was an American socialite who married him for his money, Dominique added, stirring her tea. That the marriage was a business arrangement, and all along I thought I was the one sacrificing my career for his, Tyrion said, bitter amusement in her voice. Men like Spencer, they don't just lie to their wives, Vanessa observed. They lie to everyone, including themselves. I should have known better as a lawyer, but the heart wants what it wants. Dominique finished with a Gallic shrug. The question now is, what do we do about it? Tyrion looked between these 2 accomplished women, all of them deceived by the same man. An idea began forming. One born, of righteous anger, but shaped by her architect's mind into something more structured, more strategic. I think, she said slowly, we make him face consequences for once in his privileged life. How? Vanessa asked, leaning forward. Spencer has built his life and career on lies and manipulation, Tyrion replied, her voice growing stronger. He thinks he's untouchable. But with what we know collectively, and what we can find out, we might be able to change that. You're suggesting we work together? Dominique raised a perfectly shaped eyebrow. A revenge alliance? Not just revenge, Tyrion clarified. Justice for ourselves and anyone else he's hurt. And, she added, thinking of her community center, plans. A chance for each of us to reclaim what we've lost in his orbit. Vanessa raised her teacup. To the sisterhood, then. Spencer Wilson won't know what hit him. As they clinked their cups together, Tyrion felt something she hadn't experienced in years. A sense of power and possibility. The red dress had been just the beginning. The sisterhood had formed, and Spencer Wilson's carefully constructed world was about to unravel, thread by thread. Chapter 4. Operation Takedown. He's calling you again, Jade said, glancing at Tyrion's vibrating phone. That's what, the 15th time today? Tyrion barely looked up from the documents spread across her rented office space. 3 days had passed since her birthday disaster, and Spencer had progressed from apologetic texts to desperate voicemails, his initial denials giving way to pleas for conversation. Let him squirm, Tyrion replied, highlighting a section of financial records Vanessa had discreetly provided. Besides, I'm busy. Planning world domination. Jade peered over her shoulder at the papers. Holy shit, Tyrion. Is that evidence of Spencer moving client funds through offshore accounts? Tyrion nodded grimly. Vanessa found it buried in the firm's records. She thinks he's been skimming for years. What had begun as a personal vendetta was rapidly evolving into something larger. The sisterhood, as they half-jokingly called themselves, had spent the last 72 hours pooling their knowledge of Spencer's business dealings, revealing a pattern of financial misconduct that went beyond marital infidelity. Tyrion's phone buzzed again with a text. Please come home. We need to talk. I miss you. Whatever you think happened with Elise isn't what it seems. Jade rolled her eyes. Classic gaslighting. Actually, Tyrion said, considering the message, this might work in our favor. What do you mean? Phase 1 of our plan. I go home, play the hurt but willing to listen wife. Meanwhile, Dominique accesses his European accounts. And Vanessa documents everything from the inside. Jade looked concerned. Are you sure that's safe? What if he suspects something? Spencer's ego is too massive to imagine his conquests would band together, Tyrion said, gathering the documents into a secure folder. Besides, he's seen me in that red dress now. He won't be thinking clearly. It was strange how a simple garment had shifted the power dynamic so dramatically. The memory of Spencer's face when she'd emerged in that dress, desire mixed with shock, as if truly seeing her for the first time in years, told her everything she needed to know about his current state of mind. Just be careful, Jade warned. Men like Spencer don't like losing control. Later that evening, Tyrion returned to the penthouse she'd avoided since her birthday. Spencer was waiting, looking uncharacteristically disheveled in jeans and a t-shirt instead of his usual bespoke suit. His expression brightened when she walked in. Tyrion. He moved toward her, stopping when she held up a hand. Thank you for coming home. This isn't me coming home, she clarified. This is me collecting more of my things, and maybe listening to whatever explanation you think will make a difference. Spencer ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture of frustration she'd seen countless times during their marriage. It's not what you think with Elise, or with anyone else. Anyone else? Tyrion raised an eyebrow, feigning ignorance about Dominique and Vanessa. So there are others. Interesting. No, I just meant, Spencer exhaled sharply. Can we sit down, please? She followed him to their living room, maintaining a careful distance on the opposite end of the sofa. Outside, Manhattan glittered, the lights of the city a backdrop to this theater of reconciliation she was playing for Spencer's benefit and her own. I've been a fool, Spencer began, his voice low and earnest. Bringing Elise to your birthday was unforgivable. We've been working closely, yes, but it's never been physical. The lie slid so smoothly from his lips that Tyrion almost admired his performance. She'd seen the emails, heard the accounts from both Elise's and Vanessa's perspectives. Spencer and Elise had been sleeping together for months. You've been distant, Spencer continued when she remained silent. So focused on whatever secret project you've been working on, I felt neglected. The audacity of this statement nearly cracked Tyrion's composed facade. She had given up her career for him, arranged her entire life around his schedule, and he had the nerve to claim she'd neglected him. My secret project, she said evenly, is a community center designed for my old neighborhood in Brooklyn. Architecture, Spencer, the career I put on hold for you. Genuine surprise crossed his face. I thought you were happy with our life. The charity boards, the social events, that's your world, Spencer, not mine. Tyrion stood, moving to the window. I want my own accomplishments, not borrowed prestige as your wife. Spencer joined her, careful not to touch her. I didn't know. Why didn't you say something? Would you have listened? She turned to face him. When was the last time we had a real conversation about my dreams, not just your deals and clients? The question hung between them, and Spencer had the grace to look ashamed. I can change, he said finally. Whatever you need, just don't leave. Tyrion studied him. This man she'd once loved enough to set aside her own ambitions. The sincerity in his eyes seemed genuine, but she'd learned that Spencer Wilson's greatest talent was convincing people of whatever served his interests. I need time, she said, the perfect mix of vulnerability and strength in her voice. And space. I'll stay in the guest room tonight, but I'm not making any promises beyond that. Relief washed over Spencer's face. That's all I'm asking for. A chance. He moved closer, his cologne, the expensive one he wore only for important client meetings, enveloping her. I meant what I said when you came back to the table in that dress. You looked incredible. I forgot how amazing you are. Tyrion stepped back, unwilling to let his proximity cloud her judgment. Don't. Physical attraction isn't our problem, Spencer. Trust is. His phone chimed with a text, and Tyrion caught a glimpse of Elise's name on the screen before Spencer quickly turned it over. Another piece of evidence for the sisterhood's growing file. I should unpack a few things, Tyrion said, using the interruption as an excuse to retreat. In the guest bedroom, she immediately texted the group chat she'd set up with Dominique, Vanessa, and Jade. Phase 1 complete. I'm back in the penthouse. He's denying everything, of course. Vanessa responded first. I've documented all the suspicious Meridian transactions. He's definitely skimming from client accounts. Dominique chimed in. My contact at the Paris office confirmed transfers to a Cayman account. Working on access. Be careful, Jade wrote. All of you. Tyrion changed into silk pajamas and robe, preparing for her role in the next act of this charade. When she emerged, Spencer was in the kitchen, uncorking a bottle of her favorite Bordeaux. A peace offering. I thought we could talk more, he said, holding out a glass. About your community center. I want to hear everything. For the next hour, Tyrion shared her designs, watching Spencer feign interest while clearly struggling to follow the architectural concepts. He kept refilling her wine glass, moving incrementally closer on the sofa, his eyes frequently dropping to the V of her robe. It's brilliant, he said finally. You're brilliant. I should have supported your career all along. Yes, Terrian agreed simply. You should have. Spencer set down his wineglass and turned to face her fully. Do you remember when we first met? That gallery opening in Chelsea? Of course. It had been 7 years ago. Spencer had been captivated by her passionate explanation of the building's design to another guest. He'd approached afterward, claiming her enthusiasm was the most beautiful thing he'd seen all night. You were wearing red then too, Spencer said softly. Not a dress, a blazer over a black outfit, but the same color as that dress the other night. I remember, Terrian said, surprised that he did too. She'd assumed Spencer Wilson only remembered stock prices and client names, not the clothes she wore when they met. I fell in love with your mind first, he continued, his voice dropping lower. Your passion for creating beautiful spaces. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that's who you are. The sincerity in his voice was almost convincing. In another life, before the betrayals, before the sisterhood, she might have believed him, might have let him pull her close and whisper more pretty lies against her skin. Instead, she stood, creating distance. It's late, Spencer, and this is just one conversation. It doesn't erase everything else. Disappointment flashed across his face, quickly masked. Of course. Take all the time you need. He gathered their wine glasses, his fingers brushing hers deliberately. I'm just glad you're home. In the guest bedroom, Terrian locked the door before opening her laptop to update the sisterhood. As expected, Spencer had taken the bait, believing her return signaled potential forgiveness. Meanwhile, Dominique had made progress accessing his European accounts, and Vanessa had discovered more evidence of financial impropriety. He's definitely worried about something beyond our marriage, Terrian wrote. Kept checking his phone all evening. The board meeting is Thursday, Vanessa replied. Rumor is they're questioning some of his investment decisions. Dominique added, perfect timing for Phase 2 then. Phase 2 involved a strategic leak of certain financial discrepancies to a board member known for his ethical stance, not enough to trigger immediate action, but sufficient to raise serious concerns about Spencer's management. Proceed, Terrian confirmed. But carefully. We need him worried about his business, not suspicious of us. As she closed her laptop, Terrian heard Spencer pacing in the master bedroom across the hall. His footsteps were heavy, agitated. Good. Let him feel a fraction of the uncertainty she'd lived with for months. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Wilson, this is Ryan Bennett from RB Construction. Your friend Jade gave me your number. I'd love to discuss your community center project if you're interested. Terrian vaguely remembered Jade mentioning a friend in construction who might be helpful for her project, someone with experience in community-focused building and ethical business practices, the exact opposite of Spencer, essentially. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I'd be happy to meet. Coffee tomorrow at 10? His response came quickly. Perfect, and please call me Ryan. Setting the phone aside, Terrian smiled at the ceiling. Spencer Wilson's world was beginning to shift on its axis, and he didn't even know it yet. The red dress had awakened something in her that couldn't be put back to sleep, a determination to reclaim not just her career, but her power. The Sisterhood's operation was proceeding exactly as planned. Phase 1. Infiltrate Spencer's personal life. Phase 2. Uncover his business misconduct. And Phase 3, still to come. Make sure he faced consequences for both. Spencer might think he was winning her back, but Terrian was playing a much longer game now, and she wasn't playing alone. Chapter 5. The Awakening. I'm impressed, Ryan Bennett said, studying the blueprints spread across the coffee shop table. This design balances functionality and beauty perfectly. The community spaces flow naturally into each other. Tyrion watched him analyze her work, appreciating his thoughtful observations. Unlike Spencer, who had merely pretended interest in her designs, Ryan genuinely understood architecture. At 40, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that crinkled when he smiled, he exuded a quiet confidence that came from building things with his own hands. "The challenge is funding," Tyrion admitted. "The neighborhood needs this center, but investors are hesitant about the location." Ryan nodded, sipping his black coffee. "Brooklyn's changing, but not fast enough for most developers. They want guaranteed returns." "Exactly, and I refuse to compromise on materials or sustainability features just to cut costs. Integrity in design." "Refreshing," Ryan said with a warm smile that reached his eyes, so different from Spencer's practiced charm. "My company focuses on ethical construction projects. Maybe we could partner on this." Tyrion raised an eyebrow. "You'd consider taking this on? It aligns perfectly with our mission. Plus," he added with a hint of shyness, "I rarely get to work with architects of your caliber." The compliment, delivered without expectation, warmed something inside Tyrion that had been cold for too long. Before she could respond, her phone vibrated with Spencer's name flashing on the screen. "Sorry," she murmured, silencing it. "My husband." Ryan's expression shifted slightly. "Jade mentioned your situation. I hope I'm not complicating things." "You're not," Tyrion assured him. "This is strictly professional." Even as she said it, she wondered if that was entirely true. The ease she felt with Ryan was refreshing. "Of course," Ryan nodded, returning to the blueprints. "About these solar panels on the south-facing roof." Her phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Vanessa. "Emergency. Spencer's on the warpath. Board member leaked our info. Call ASAP." "I'm sorry," Tyrion said, gathering her designs quickly. "Something's come up." Ryan helped her organize the blueprints. "Everything okay?" "Just work complications." She hesitated, then added, "Can we continue this discussion later?" "Absolutely." He handed her his business card. "My cell's on there. Call anytime." Outside the coffee shop, Tyrion called Vanessa, who answered immediately. "What happened?" Tyrion asked, hailing a taxi. "Gregory Richardson, the board member we fed information to, confronted Spencer directly instead of bringing it to the full board," Vanessa explained, her voice tense. "Spencer's furious, demanding to know who accessed those files." "Does he suspect you?" "No, he's blaming the IT department, but he's ordered a full security audit. If they trace my access—" "They won't," Tyrion assured her, though uncertainty gnawed at her. "Where is Spencer now?" "Locked in his office with the security team. He's called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning." "And the files we need?" "I've backed up everything," Vanessa confirmed, "but we need to accelerate the timeline. Once his security team starts, digging, they'll find our digital fingerprints," Tyrion finished. "What about Dominique? Flying back to Paris tonight. She secured access to the European accounts, but needs to be on the ground there to complete the transfer tracking." The taxi pulled up outside Wilson Capital Management's gleaming tower. "I'm heading up now," Tyrion said. "Keep everything secure until we regroup." In the lobby, she straightened her shoulders and adopted the poised demeanor of Mrs. Spencer Wilson, the impeccable corporate wife. The security guard nodded respectfully as she breezed past, taking the executive elevator to the top floor. Bethany's eyes widened when she saw Tyrion approach. "Mrs. Wilson, Mr. Wilson is in a closed meeting." "It's fine, Bethany," Tyrion said smoothly. "I'm just dropping off something he requested." Before Bethany could object, Spencer's office door flew open. He emerged, his face a mask of controlled fury, followed by two men in suits, the head of security and the firm's general counsel. Spencer froze when he saw Tyrion. "What are you doing here?" "You called 6 times, she replied calmly. "I thought it might be important. The conflict in Ney." Spencer's expression was almost comical, anger warring with his desire to maintain the facade of reconciliation. "We're dealing with a situation," he said finally. "I can see that." Tyrion held up the small shopping bag she'd brought as cover. "I just came to drop off your cufflinks, the ones you wanted for tomorrow's meeting." Spencer's eyes narrowed slightly, suspicious of her convenient appearance, but his pride wouldn't allow him to question her in front of his colleagues. "Thank you. That's thoughtful." "Mrs. Wilson," the General Counsel said with a nod, "perhaps we could continue this discussion in your office, Spencer." "Of course." Spencer turned to Tyrion. "Wait for me, I won't be long." As soon as they disappeared into the adjacent conference room, Tyrion moved quickly. She slipped into Spencer's office, using the keycard Bethany discreetly slid across her desk. Once inside, she inserted the flash drive Vanessa had given her into Spencer's computer, running the program that would extract additional financial records. While the download progressed, Tyrion scanned the papers on Spencer's desk. Meeting notes, financial projections, and, her breath caught, divorce papers, partially filled out but unsigned. So much for his promises of reconciliation. The computer chimed softly, indicating the download was complete. Tyrion removed the flash drive and returned to Bethany's desk just as Spencer's office phone rang. "It's Elise Morgan," Bethany said, her hand covering the receiver. "Again. That's her third call today." Tyrion smiled. "Tell her he's unavailable, permanently." Bethany's answering smile was conspiratorial. "With pleasure, Mrs. Wilson." When Spencer emerged 30 minutes later, he found Tyrion flipping through a magazine in his waiting area, The Picture of Patience. "Sorry about that," he said, his earlier anger carefully masked. "Security issue." "Anything serious?" Tyrion asked innocently. Spencer guided her toward the elevator, his hand possessive at the small of her back. "Nothing for you to worry about. Just some accounting irregularities we're investigating." "How distressing." Tyrion stepped into the elevator. "I hope it's resolved quickly." Once they were alone in the descending elevator, Spencer's demeanor changed. He crowded her against the wall, his height intimidating despite his gentle tone. "What's really going on, Tyrion? Why are you here today of all days?" She met his gaze, steadily. "I told you. You called repeatedly. After 3 days of ignoring me," he countered, skepticism evident. "And you just happened to show up during a security crisis? What are you suggesting, Spencer?" Her voice remained calm despite her racing heart. "That I somehow caused your accounting problems?" The suggestion was so close to the truth that Tyrion had to force herself not to react when Spencer studied her face, searching for deception. Whatever he saw or didn't see seemed to satisfy him. His posture relaxed slightly. "No, of course not," he said finally. "I'm just on edge. Someone's trying to sabotage me, and I don't know who to trust." "That must be difficult," Tyrion replied, feeling a twisted satisfaction. Not knowing who to trust. The irony seemed lost on Spencer. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, and he guided her outside to the waiting Bentley, his customary control reasserted. "Come home with me," he said, his voice dropping to the persuasive tone that had once made her heart race. "Let me cook dinner for you, like I used to." The early days of their marriage flashed in Tyrion's mind. Spencer surprising her with home-cooked meals after late nights at her drafting table, wine and conversation flowing easily between them, before ambition and other women consumed him. "All right," she agreed, part of their strategic plan to keep him close and distracted. Spencer looked genuinely pleased, squeezing her hand as they slid into the back seat. "I've missed you," he murmured, his lips brushing her temple. The gesture would have melted her heart once. Now, knowing what she did, both about his affairs and the divorce papers on his desk, it merely strengthened her resolve. In the penthouse kitchen, Spencer moved with his old confidence, preparing the pasta dish he'd made when they were dating, Tyrion perched on a bar stool, sipping the wine he'd poured and watching his performance. "I met with an investor today," she said casually, "for the community center." Spencer glanced up from chopping herbs. "Already? That's ambitious." Ryan Bennett from RB Construction. He specializes in sustainable community projects. Something flashed in Spencer's eyes, possessiveness, perhaps jealousy. "Bennett, never heard of him." "He's not in your circles," Tyrion replied. "He builds things that matter, not just things that make money." The implied criticism wasn't lost on Spencer. He set down his knife, wiping his hands on a towel before approaching her. "You're different lately," he observed. "More decisive. I've had a wake-up call," Tyrion admitted, thinking of the red dress hanging in her closet. Seeing things clearly for the first time in years. Spencer moved closer, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw. "I like it," he said, his voice husky. "This confident version of you reminds me of the woman I fell for." The compliment rang hollow, given the evidence of his betrayal, but Tyrion forced herself to remain in character. She allowed him to pull her closer, his lips finding hers in a kiss that was both familiar and strange. For a moment, muscle memory took over, her body responding to the man who had once been her entire world. Spencer deepened the kiss, his hands sliding down to her waist. "I've missed this," he murmured against her neck. "Missed us." Reality crashed back as Tyrion's phone vibrated in her pocket. She pulled away, breathless but clear-headed. "The pasta," she reminded him. Spencer reluctantly returned to the stove while Tyrion checked her phone. A message from Dominique. "Paris accounts confirmed. We'll send details tomorrow. Be careful." Dinner progressed with a strange mix of tension and false normalcy. Spencer spoke of future plans, vacations they should take, renovations to the penthouse, as if their marriage wasn't balanced on a knife's edge. Tyrion played along, all while gathering more information about his business concerns. "This security breach," she asked casually over dessert. "Is it serious?" Spencer's expression darkened. "Someone's trying to frame me for financial mismanagement. The numbers they showed the board were manipulated." "Who would do that?" "I have enemies," he said, swirling his wine. "Success breeds jealousy. Or perhaps," Tyrion thought, "your actions have consequences." Later, as they settled on the sofa with more wine, Spencer's hand found hers. "Stay tonight," he murmured. "In our room. I've missed holding you." The request hung between them, heavy with implication. Tyrion knew accepting would advance their plan, keep Spencer distracted and believing in their reconciliation. But something in her rebelled at the idea of sharing his bed again, knowing what she now knew. "I can't," she said softly. "Not yet. There's still too much unsaid between us." Disappointment flickered across Spencer's face, but he nodded. "I understand. I'm just grateful you're giving me another chance." The irony of his gratitude, as she actively worked to dismantle his carefully constructed world of lies, wasn't lost on Tyrion. As she retreated to the guest room that night, she felt something shifting inside her. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about awakening to her own power, reclaiming the woman she'd been before Spencer Wilson remade her in his preferred image. In the darkness of the guest room, Tyrion finally checked the message that had interrupted their kiss. It wasn't from Dominique as she'd thought, but from Ryan. "Reviewed your plans again. This project matters. Let me know when you're ready to build something real." Something real. The words resonated through her like a bell's clear tone. That's what she was doing, she realized, building something real from the ashes of Spencer's betrayal. Not just the community center, but herself. The red dress had awakened her. Now there was no going back to sleep. Chapter 6. The unraveling man. Spencer Wilson had built his reputation on control. Control of markets, control of people, control of outcomes. For 15 years he'd navigated Wall Street with the precision of a surgeon, cutting away obstacles and threats with calculated efficiency. Until now. "What do you mean, discrepancies?" he demanded, glaring at the forensic accountant across his desk. Those transfers were authorized. By whom? The accountant, a thin, unimpressive man named Morris, who nonetheless wielded devastating power in this moment, adjusted his glasses. "There's no documentation for approval on any of these transactions, Mr. Wilson, and they all trace back to your authorization codes." Spencer loosened his tie, feeling uncharacteristically warm. "That's impossible. Check again." "We've checked." "3 times, Morris replied, his voice irritatingly calm. "The board has requested a full audit of all European transactions for the past 18 months. 18 months, precisely when he'd begun diverting funds to his personal accounts in the Caymans. Spencer maintained his composed expression through sheer force of will. "Fine, do what you need to do, but discreetly. The last thing we need is client panic." When Morris left, Spencer locked his office door and poured himself 3 fingers of bourbon, downing it in one burning swallow. Who was working against him? Richardson had been clear that someone had provided him with transaction records that should have been accessible to only a handful of people. His phone buzzed with Elise's name on the screen. He sent it to voicemail. Since Terrian's return, he'd kept Elise at arm's length, concerned about complicating his marital reconciliation. Terrian had changed since the night of her birthday, the night of that red dress. She moved differently, spoke differently, as if awakened from a long sleep. The woman he'd married had been accommodating, malleable. This new Terrian was steel, beneath silk, and Spencer found himself both frustrated and captivated by the transformation. A text from Dominique appeared. "Need to discuss Paris accounts urgently." Another complication. He'd have to manage that situation carefully. His phone buzzed again. Bethany this time. "What is it?" he snapped, answering. "Mrs. Wilson is here to see you," Bethany replied, unfazed by his tone after years of his mercurial moods. Spencer straightened his tie, composing himself. "Send her in." Terrian entered, dressed in a tailored white pantsuit that accentuated her curves while projecting professional authority. Not the demure corporate wife outfit she would have chosen before. This was the wardrobe of a woman with her own agenda. "This is a surprise," Spencer said, moving to kiss her cheek. Terrian allowed the kiss but didn't reciprocate. "I just had a meeting nearby and thought I'd stop by." She glanced around his office. "Everything all right? You look tense." "Just the usual business headaches." Spencer guided her to the seating area. "What kind of meeting?" "With Ryan Bennett. We're finalizing plans for the community center presentation next week." Spencer's jaw tightened at Bennett's name. The man had been texting Terrian frequently over the past week, always about the project, according to Terrian. But Spencer wasn't. Blind to the possibility of more. "You're spending a lot of time with him." "He's my contractor," Terrian replied simply, "and he believes in the project." The implication hung in the air, unlike you, the husband who dismissed her architectural ambitions for years. Spencer forced a smile. "I'd like to attend the presentation if that's all right. Support your work." Surprise flickered across Terrian's face. "You want to come?" "Of course. I should be more involved in your career." The words felt foreign in his mouth, but necessary. Whatever it took to keep her close right now. "We're partners, after all." Terrian studied him, searching for sincerity. "All right, it's Thursday at 2 p.m. His phone buzzed again. Elise, for the 3rd time that hour. Spencer silenced it without looking, but not before Terrian noticed the name. "You should take that," she said coolly. "Sounds important." "It's not," Spencer insisted. "Nothing's more important than this. Us." Tyrion's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. I appreciate the sentiment, but we both know your business comes first. Always has. Before Spencer could respond, his office door burst open. Elise Morgan stormed in, her usual polished appearance slightly disheveled, her blue eyes bright with fury. 3 days of ignoring my calls, Spencer? She demanded, then froze when she saw Tyrion. Oh. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. 10 degrees. Spencer stood, positioning himself between the two women. Elise, this is inappropriate. I'm in a meeting. With your wife, Elise said, venom dripping from the last word. How convenient. Tyrion rose with remarkable composure. Actually, I was just leaving. She gathered her purse, moving toward the door. Clearly, you two have things to discuss. Tyrion, wait. Spencer reached for her arm, but she sidestepped him gracefully. Thursday, 2 p.m., she reminded him, pausing, at the door. If you still want to come. Her gaze shifted to Elise. Nice bracelet, by the way. Elise instinctively touched the diamond bracelet on her wrist, Spencer's gift, as Tyrion closed the door behind her. You promised you were ending things with her, Elise hissed once they were alone. You said the marriage was over, except on paper. Spencer ran a hand through his hair, the control he prided himself on slipping away by the minute. It's complicated. Elise, complicated? You brought me to her birthday dinner, Spencer. You humiliated her publicly. And now you're what? Reconciling? I'm trying to, he admitted. And I need you to give me space to do that. Elise's laugh was bitter. Space? For months you've been telling me I'm special, that once your divorce is finalized we could be together openly. Was that all a lie? The accusation hit too close to home. Spencer had indeed made those promises, just as he'd made similar ones to Dominique during his Paris trips. Compartmentalizing his life had always been easy, until now when the compartments were collapsing into each other. I never meant to hurt you, he said, falling back on the platitudes that had served him well with emotional confrontations in the past. But my marriage deserves one last chance. Because she wore a red dress? Elise's voice rose incredulously. That's what Bethany said, that you've been obsessed since your wife showed up in some red dress at her birthday. Spencer flinched at having his private reactions exposed. Yes, something had shifted that night, seeing Tyrion transformed, confident, commanding the room's attention. The woman he'd married had re-emerged from behind the compliant wife he'd molded her into, and the effect had been electrifying. This isn't about a dress, he said, though they both knew it wasn't entirely true. It's about obligations, history. It's about your reputation, Elise countered, hitting the mark. The board's investigating you, and suddenly you need the perfect wife by your side. How convenient. The accuracy of her assessment stung. Yes, with the board breathing down his neck, having his marriage publicly intact was strategically advantageous. But it wasn't just calculation driving him back to Tyrion. The red dress had revealed what he'd forgotten, that beneath the perfect corporate wife was a woman of substance and fire. I think you should take some time off, Spencer said coldly, retreating to his default management style. The Meridian project is wrapping up. Go to the Hamptons house for a few weeks. Elise stared at him, disbelief giving way to understanding. You're sidelining me, after everything. I'm giving you paid leave during a stressful time, Spencer corrected, already reaching for his phone to message HR. It's for the best. You'll regret this, Elise said quietly, her initial rage cooling into something more dangerous. I know things, Spencer. About the accounts, about the Meridian deal structure, things the board would find very interesting. The threat hung in the air between them. Spencer maintained his composed expression through years of practice, though alarm bells rang internally. Are you threatening me, Elise? Just stating facts. She moved toward the door. Enjoy your reconciliation. I wonder if Tyrion knows about Dominique or Vanessa from legal. After she left, Spencer collapsed into His chair, the facade of control, crumbling. His carefully constructed world was unraveling thread by thread. The board's investigation, Elise's threats, and the growing suspicion that Tyrion's return might not be as straightforward as it seemed. He poured another bourbon, contemplating his next move. Damage control was essential. First, contain Elise. Perhaps a generous severance package with an ironclad confidentiality agreement. Then accelerate the transfer of the Cayman funds to a more secure location. Finally, cement Tyrion's commitment to their reconciliation. That evening, Spencer left work early for the first time in years, stopping to purchase an extravagant bouquet of red roses, the same shade as that dress. When he arrived home, the penthouse was quiet. "Tyrion," he called, setting down the flowers. He found her in her studio space, bent over blueprints with intense concentration. Her hair was pulled back, a pencil tucked behind her ear, completely absorbed in her work. Spencer paused in the doorway, struck by the image. This was the woman he'd first been attracted to. Passionate, focused, alive with creative energy. "You're home early," Tyrion observed without looking up. "I wanted to apologize for what happened today," Spencer said, entering the room. "With Elise, it was inappropriate." Tyrion finally met his eyes, her expression unreadable. "Was it? She seemed to think she had a right to confront you," Spencer sighed, perching on the edge of her drafting table. "It's over with her. I ended it." "When?" "Officially, today, but it's been over since your birthday." Spencer reached for her hand, relieved when she didn't pull away. "Seeing you in that red dress, it was like waking up from a long sleep, remembering who we were together." Something flickered in Tyrion's eyes, recognition, perhaps, of the parallel to her own awakening. "One dress doesn't erase years of neglect, Spencer, or multiple affairs." The directness of her accusation startled him. The old Tyrion would have spoken in careful euphemisms, avoiding direct confrontation. "How many were there?" she continued, her voice steady. "Besides Elise." Spencer hesitated, weighing his options. The truth might drive her away permanently, but a lie could do the same if discovered, and something told him this new Tyrion would not be easily deceived. "Two others," he admitted finally. "Dominique in Paris, and Vanessa from legal, but they're all in the past now." Tyrion nodded slowly, absorbing the confirmation of what she'd already pieced together. "Thank you for being honest." Finally. Her calm acceptance unsettled him more than anger would have. "I'll do whatever it takes to make this right," Spencer promised, squeezing her hand. "Therapy, counseling, anything." "Why?" Tyrion asked, the simple question cutting to the heart of the matter. "Why now, Spencer? Is it really about us, or is it about the board investigation?" Spencer froze. "What do you know about that?" "Wall Street rumors travel fast," Tyrion replied with a shrug. "Jade's husband works at Goldman. He mentioned the Wilson capital audit." Relief mingled with lingering suspicion. Of course, Peter Lawson at Goldman would know about the audit. The financial world was a small one. Still, the timing of Tyrion's question was uncomfortably precise. "The board investigation is a nuisance." "Nothing more," Spencer said dismissively. "Some accounts flagged for review. Standard procedure." "If you say so." Tyrion turned back to her, blueprints, effectively dismissing him. "I need to finish these revisions before Thursday's presentation." Spencer hesitated, thrown by her casual dismissal. Usually he was the one ending conversations on his terms. "I bought dinner," he offered, "from that Italian place you love in the village." Tyrion looked up, genuine surprise softening her features. "Marcella's. You went all the way downtown?" "I had the driver make a special trip," Spencer admitted, pleased to have finally found the right gesture, "and I brought work home to be here with you tonight." This small sacrifice, reorganizing his schedule for her, seemed to reach Tyrion. In a way his grander gestures hadn't. She set down her pencil with a small smile. "Let me finish this section, and I'll join you in 20 minutes. It was a small victory, but Spencer would take it. His world might be unraveling at the seams, but perhaps his marriage didn't have to be part of the collapse. Later that night, after a surprisingly pleasant dinner where they'd reminisced about their early days together, Spencer sat in his home office, reviewing the files his security team had sent over. Someone had accessed confidential financial records repeatedly over the past month, but the system logs had been cleverly altered to hide the user's identity. His phone rang. Dominique, calling from Paris. "Spencer." Her French accent was thick, with concern. "There's a problem with the accounts?" "Not over the phone," he warned, immediately on alert. "Use the secure channel we discussed." "It's too late for that," Dominique replied. "Someone has been tracking all the transfers. The Paris office received inquiries from financial regulators this morning." Cold dread settled in Spencer's stomach. "That's impossible. Those accounts are untraceable." "Evidently not," Dominique said sharply. "What are we going to do?" "Nothing," Spencer ordered. "Say nothing, do nothing. I'll handle it from here." After hanging up, Spencer poured himself another drink, his third of the night. The walls were closing in. First the board's investigation, then Elise's threats, now European regulators. Someone was methodically dismantling the financial structure he'd spent years building. A soft knock at his office door interrupted his spiraling thoughts. Tyrion entered, wrapped in a silk robe, her hair loose around her shoulders. "Still working?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. Spencer closed, the incriminating files on his laptop. "Just finishing up." Tyrion crossed to where he sat, surprising him by perching on the arm of his chair. Her proximity, the scent of her perfume, the warmth of her body, momentarily distracted him from his mounting problems. "I've been thinking," she said, her fingers lightly touching his shoulder, "about what you said earlier, about therapy." Hope flickered in Spencer's chest. "Yes? I'd like us to try it," Tyrion continued, "if you're serious about making changes." "I am," Spencer assured her, turning to face her fully. "I'll call Dr. Hamilton tomorrow. He's supposed to be the best marriage counselor in Manhattan." Tyrion nodded, her expression softening. "Thank you for dinner tonight, for making the effort." The genuine appreciation in her voice encouraged Spencer to reach for her, drawing her onto his lap. When she didn't resist, he grew bolder, his hand sliding beneath the silk of her robe to find warm skin. "I've missed you," he murmured, his lips finding the sensitive spot below her ear that had always made her shiver. "So much." For a moment, Tyrion seemed to yield, her body remembering patterns established over years together. Her hand came up to cradle his face, and Spencer felt a surge of triumph. Despite everything, his affairs, the business complications, she still wanted him. Then her phone chimed from the pocket of her robe. Tyrion stiffened, pulling away slightly. "Ignore it," Spencer urged, tightening his hold, but Tyrion was already reaching for her phone, checking the message. Something in her expression changed, a momentary softening around her eyes that Spencer recognized with a stab of jealousy. "Who is it?" he asked, unable to keep the edge from his voice. "Just Jade," Tyrion replied smoothly, tucking the phone away. "Checking on me." Spencer wasn't convinced, but pressing the issue would only create distance when he'd just gained ground. He resumed his attentions, pleased when Tyrion allowed his kisses, though her response lacked the enthusiasm of moments before. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered against her neck. "In our bed." Tyrion hesitated, then shook her head gently. "Not yet, Spencer. We still have a lot to work through." Disappointment surged, but Spencer knew better than to push. This new Tyrion had boundaries he wasn't accustomed to navigating. "I understand," he said, releasing her reluctantly. "One step at a time." As Tyrion left for the guest room, Spencer returned to his laptop, the momentary distraction of desire, giving way to cold reality. His business empire was under threat, his mistresses were becoming liabilities, and his wife, despite the progress tonight, was still keeping him at arm's length. In the darkness of his office, Spencer Wilson confronted an unfamiliar emotion, fear. For the first time in his carefully managed life, he wasn't in control, and somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered that perhaps he never had been. Chapter 7. Truth and Deception. Rain lashed against the windows of Tyrion's studio space, matching her turbulent mood as she prepared for her community center presentation. The blueprints were perfect, the financial projections solid, but her thoughts kept drifting to Spencer and the web of deception that had become her life. Her phone buzzed with a message from Vanessa. Board meeting moved up. Tonight at 8. Spencer doesn't know yet. Tyrion's fingers flew across the screen. Will he be prepared? No. Perfect timing for Phase 3. Phase 3. The final stage of their plan. The sisterhood had compiled irrefutable evidence of Spencer's financial misconduct, and tonight the board would receive an anonymous package detailing every transaction, every offshore account, every ethical breach. Spencer Wilson's carefully constructed empire would crumble in a single evening. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Spencer stood there, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, looking every inch the confident CEO, despite the storm brewing around him. "Ready for your big presentation?" he asked, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Almost," Tyrion replied, gathering her materials. "You still planning to attend?" "Wouldn't miss it." Spencer approached, placing his hands on her shoulders. "I'm proud of you, you know, taking this step back into your career." The words might have warmed her heart once. Now, knowing what she did, both about his affairs and his impending downfall, they rang hollow. "Thank you," she said simply, stepping out of his grasp. "We should go. Ryan's meeting us there." A flicker of jealousy crossed Spencer's face at Ryan's name. "Of course, your contractor." The drive to the Brooklyn development office was tense with unspoken words. Spencer kept checking his phone, no doubt sensing the walls closing in though, not yet understanding why. Tyrion maintained her composure, playing the role of nervous architect rather than architect of his destruction. Ryan was waiting outside the building, his solid presence a contrast to Spencer's tightly wound energy. After brief introductions, they entered together, an uneasy trio heading toward Tyrion's potential professional rebirth and Spencer's ruin. The presentation went brilliantly. Tyrion spoke with passion about community needs, sustainable design, and social impact. The investors asked tough questions, which she answered with confidence born from years of preparation. Spencer, to his credit, remained supportive throughout, offering relevant market insights when appropriate. "Impressive work, Mrs. Wilson," the lead investor said afterward. "We'd like to move forward with preliminary funding." Joy surged through Tyrion, genuine, untainted by the machinations against Spencer. This was her achievement, her vision coming to life. "Thank you. You won't regret it." As they exited the building, Spencer's phone rang. His expression darkened as he listened. "What do you mean, emergency meeting? I wasn't notified." He glanced at his watch. "Fine, I'll be there in 30 minutes. He turned to Tyrion. Conflict evident in his eyes, the CEO needed at his firm, the husband trying to support his wife's moment. "Go," she said, making the decision for him. "This is important." "So is this," Spencer insisted, gesturing to her blueprints. "Your success." "I've got it covered," Ryan interjected. "We're celebrating at that bistro on Smith Street. You can meet us later, if your meeting wraps up." Spencer's jaw tightened at the easy familiarity between Ryan and Tyrion. but crisis management instincts won out. "I'll try," he said, kissing Tyrion's cheek before striding toward his waiting car. As his Bentley disappeared into traffic, Ryan turned to Tyrion. "Everything okay?" "It will be," she replied cryptically. "Let's celebrate. I could use a drink." At the bistro, surrounded by exposed brick and soft jazz, Tyrion received a text from Dominique. "Package delivered to board. Fireworks starting." Ryan noticed her expression change. "Work stuff?" "Something like that," Tyrion replied, tucking her phone away. "Sorry, tonight should be about the project." "And you," Ryan added, raising his glass. "To Tyrion Walker, architect. Extraordinaire, bringing beauty and function to Brooklyn." "Just Tyrion Walker?" she asked, the question loaded with meaning. Ryan held her gaze steadily. "I've noticed you don't use Wilson professionally." "No," Tyrion confirmed. "I never did. Even before whatever's happening with your husband," Ryan finished delicately. "Which, forgive me for saying, seems complicated." Tyrion laughed. "A genuine sound despite everything. That might be the understatement of the year. Want to talk about it?" Ryan offered. "I'm told I'm a good listener." For a moment, Tyrion considered telling him everything, the betrayals, the sisterhood, the elaborate revenge plot culminating tonight. But something held her back. Ryan represented a possible future, untainted by the ugliness of her present situation. "It's a long story," she said finally. "The short version is that Spencer hasn't been faithful, and I'm figuring out what that means for us." Ryan nodded, not pushing for details. "And the community center, where does that fit in?" "It's my way back to myself," Tyrion admitted. "Who I was before I became Mrs. Spencer Wilson." "I like that person," Ryan said simply. "The architect with vision and passion." Heat rose to Tyrion's cheeks, a reaction that surprised her. Before she could respond, her phone vibrated repeatedly, multiple messages flooding in. Excusing herself, she checked the screen. "Vanessa. It's happening. Board has everything. Dominique. Securities Commission contacted. Auditors arriving tomorrow. Jade. News breaking on financial sites. Spencer Wilson under investigation. And finally, Spencer. Whatever you've heard, it's lies. Don't believe it. Need to talk." The reckoning had begun. Tyrion took a deep breath, ordering another glass of wine. She should feel triumphant. Their plan was working perfectly, but instead felt strangely hollow. "Bad news?" Ryan asked when she returned. "Not for me," Tyrion replied, "but I should probably head home soon." Ryan signaled for the check. "I'll get you a taxi." Outside, rain had given way to a clear night, the Brooklyn streets glistening under streetlights. As they waited for the taxi, Ryan maintained a respectful distance despite the clear attraction between them. "Thank you," Tyrion said suddenly, "for believing in the project, for seeing me as an architect first." "That's who you are," Ryan replied simply. "Everything else is just circumstances." The taxi arrived, and as Tyrion moved to enter, Ryan gently caught her hand. "Whatever's happening tonight, with your husband, with your marriage, just remember you have options, a future that's yours to design." The architectural metaphor wasn't lost on her. "I'll remember that." When Tyrion arrived at the penthouse, she found Spencer waiting, his usual polished appearance in disarray, tie loosened, hair disheveled, a half-empty glass of bourbon in his hand. "You knew," he said without preamble, his voice dangerously quiet. "Somehow you knew this was coming." Tyrion set down her portfolio case carefully. "What are you talking about?" "Don't," Spencer snapped, slamming down his glass. "The board received detailed records of every offshore transaction I've made for the past 2 years. Records only a handful of people could access." "And you think I'm responsible?" Tyrion maintained her composure despite her racing heart. "I think it's quite a coincidence that you've been at the office multiple times recently, after years of barely setting." Foot there. Spencer moved closer, his height intimidating. And that you're suddenly friendly with my executive assistant, and that you've been asking about my European business. Tyrion met his gaze steadily. Perhaps if you hadn't been sleeping with half your executive team, I wouldn't have had reason to ask questions. The truth landed like a physical blow. Spencer stepped back, his anger giving way to confusion. This is about Elise, Dominique, this level of corporate sabotage over affairs. This is about consequences, Spencer, Tyrion replied, her voice steady. Something you've never had to face. Until now. Understanding dawned in Spencer's eyes, followed quickly by disbelief. You're working with them. My God, you've been coordinating with them. The accusation hung in the air between them, neither confirmation nor denial necessary. Spencer collapsed onto the sofa, the full weight of his situation finally hitting him. They're freezing the accounts, he said, his voice hollow. All of them. The board has suspended me pending investigation. 15 years of work, gone in an evening. Despite everything, a flicker of sympathy stirred in Tyrion. This broken man was still the one she'd once loved enough to set aside her own dreams for. What will you do? She asked quietly. Spencer looked up, something like respect glimmering beneath his anger. You really did it. The perfect corporate wife, planning my downfall all along. Not all along, Tyrion corrected. Just since you brought your mistress to my birthday dinner. The red dress, Spencer murmured, almost to himself. That's when everything changed. Tyrion nodded, the truth simple and profound. That's when I changed. Chapter 8. The Grand Gesture. 3 weeks after Spencer's suspension, Tyrion stood on the Brooklyn site where her community center would soon rise. Construction equipment had arrived that morning, and Ryan's team was already marking the foundation lines. The spring sunshine felt like a blessing on this new beginning. We can break ground next week, Ryan said, reviewing the final permits. Faster than I expected. The investors are eager to see progress, Tyrion replied, unable to suppress her smile. After years of dormant dreams, her vision was becoming reality. Her phone buzzed, Jade checking in, as she did daily since Spencer's downfall. The media coverage had been brutal. Wall Street wunderkind falls from grace, and Wilson Capital faces client exodus, dominated financial headlines. Spencer had retreated to their Hamptons house, avoiding both press and former colleagues. Tyrion had stayed in the penthouse, meeting with her lawyer about separation proceedings while throwing herself into the community center project. The sisterhood had disbanded, their mission accomplished. Dominique had returned to Paris. Vanessa had accepted a position at a competing firm, and Tyrion was left to determine what justice meant for her personally. Earth to Tyrion, Ryan said gently, interrupting her thoughts. Lost you there for a minute? Sorry. She tucked her phone away. Just thinking about how much has changed in a month. Ryan's expression softened with understanding. He'd been a steady presence throughout the upheaval, never pushing for more than she was ready to give, but making his interest clear in subtle ways. Change can be good, he observed, especially when it means building something new. The double meaning wasn't lost on Tyrion. One project at a time, she replied with a small smile. As they finished reviewing the site plans, Tyrion's phone rang, Spencer's number. She hadn't spoken to him since he'd left for the Hamptons, their communication limited to terse texts and messages through lawyers. I should take this, she said, stepping away. Ryan nodded. I'll finish up here. Dinner later to celebrate the permits? I'd like that, Tyrion confirmed before answering the call. Spencer, I'm back in the city, he said without preamble. Can we meet? There's something I need to show you. His voice sounded different, lacking the commanding tone she'd grown accustomed to over their years together, more human somehow. I'm busy today, Tyrion replied cautiously. Please, Tyrion. The word please, so rarely part of Spencer Wilson's vocabulary, gave her pause. Just an hour, it's important. Against her better judgment, Tyrion agreed to meet him at the penthouse at 5. As she ended the call, Ryan approached with concern, evident in his eyes. "Everything okay?" "Spencer's back in town," she explained. "Wants to meet." Ryan's expression remained neutral, though his eyes betrayed his worry. "Be careful. Men like him don't accept defeat easily." "I know," Tyrion assured him, "but this needs resolution, one way or another." When Tyrion arrived at the penthouse that evening, she found the door unlocked but no sign of Spencer. The space felt different somehow, emptier, as if the very air had changed in his absence. "Spencer?" she called, setting down her portfolio. "In here," his voice came from the direction of their rarely used formal dining room. Tyrion followed the sound, stopping short at the threshold. The dining room had been transformed. The massive table was gone, replaced by gallery walls displaying framed photographs and paintings. In the center stood Spencer, looking thinner. Then she remembered, dressed casually in jeans and a simple button-down. "What is this?" she asked, taking in the transformed space. "Do you remember where we met?" Spencer asked, gesturing to the walls around them. "The Reeves Gallery," Tyrion replied automatically. "The architectural exhibition." Spencer nodded, moving to the nearest display. "You were explaining cantilevers to a confused donor. I'd never heard anyone speak about buildings with such passion." Tyrion approached slowly, examining the framed items. There were photographs of their early days together, Tyrion at her drafting table, Spencer watching her with unguarded admiration. Blueprints she'd drawn for buildings never constructed. News clippings about promising young architect Tyrion Walker. "You kept all this?" she asked, surprised he'd documented her career so thoroughly, even as he'd discouraged its continuation. "I did," Spencer confirmed. "Even when I was—" He hesitated, searching for words. "Even when I was being the world's worst husband, some part of me remembered who you really were. Who we were together, before I got lost in my own ambition." Tyrion moved to the far wall, where paintings hung, commissioned, works depicting significant moments in their relationship, their first meeting, their wedding day, and most startling, Tyrion, in the red dress on her birthday, captured with striking accuracy. Her dignity, her power, her awakening. "I hired the artist from memory," Spencer explained, watching her reaction. "I wanted to preserve how you looked that night, the moment I realized what I'd been throwing away." The grand gesture was quintessentially Spencer, dramatic, expensive, designed for maximum emotional impact. Yet something about it felt different from his previous manipulations. There was a rawness to his expression, a vulnerability she'd never seen before. "Why show me this now?" Tyrion asked, maintaining emotional distance despite the powerful images surrounding them. Spencer ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture so unlike his usual confident demeanor. "Because I'm pleading guilty." "What?" The statement caught her completely off guard. "To the financial charges," Spencer clarified. "No protracted legal battle, no dragging things out. My lawyer thinks I'm crazy, but I'm taking responsibility. Full restitution to affected clients, cooperation with authorities." Tyrion studied him, searching for the angle, the manipulation beneath this apparent surrender. "Why?" "Because you were right," Spencer said simply. "About consequences, about everything. I've never faced them before, always believing I could talk, charm, or buy my way out of any situation." He gestured to the gallery he'd created. "This isn't about winning you back. I don't have the right to ask for that anymore. It's about acknowledging the truth, who you are, who I was, what we lost." The sincerity in his voice was disarming. Tyrion moved among the displayed memories, processing this unexpected development. The Spencer she knew would never plead guilty, never surrender power voluntarily. "What happens now?" she asked finally. "I'll likely serve time," Spencer admitted. "Not long with the plea deal, but enough. The firm will survive under new management, and you..." He paused, looking at her directly. You'll build your community center, resume your career, live the life you should have had all along. With your blessing? Tyrion couldn't keep the edge from her voice. I don't need your permission, Spencer. No, you don't, he agreed quickly. You never did. That was my mistake, thinking I could contain someone like you. The red dress just reminded me who you really are. They stood in silence, surrounded by the visual history of their relationship, the hopeful beginning, the troubled middle, the fractured present. I've signed the separation papers, Spencer said finally. They're on the kitchen counter. No contests, no complications. Everything we discussed through the lawyers. Tyrion nodded, processing the implications. This wasn't the confrontation she'd anticipated, the angry recriminations or desperate pleading. This Spencer, humbled, accepting responsibility, was someone she'd never met before. What about Ryan? Spencer asked suddenly, the question catching her off guard. What about him? He's in love with you, Spencer stated matter-of-factly. I saw it at your presentation, the way he looks at you, the way I used to. Tyrion didn't deny it. We're working together on the community center. But it could be more, Spencer pressed gently. He's a good man, Tyrion, the kind who would support your dreams, not suppress them. The irony of Spencer encouraging her toward another man wasn't lost on Tyrion. Why are you doing this? Really? Spencer approached, stopping, at a respectful distance. Because genuine atonement isn't just saying sorry, it's making things right, and I can't make anything right if you're still tied to me out of obligation or unfinished business. He gestured to the images surrounding them. I created this to remind us both of what was real between us, because there was love there, Tyrion. Before I corrupted it with lies and selfishness, I needed you to know that I remember the truth, even as I accept the consequences of losing it. Despite herself, Tyrion was moved. Not enough to forgive everything, but enough to recognize the effort at genuine change. Thank you for this, she said softly, gesturing to the gallery he'd created. It does matter. Acknowledging who we were, Spencer nodded, relief evident in his eyes. There's one more thing, he said, retrieving an envelope from the side table. The deed to the Brooklyn land adjacent to your community center site. I bought it last week. It's now in the name of your foundation. Tyrion took the envelope with surprise. How did you? I still had some assets they hadn't frozen, Spencer explained. I wanted it to go to something meaningful. Your vision deserves room to grow. The gesture was substantial, not just financially, but symbolically. Spencer Wilson, who had built his fortune through calculating self-interest, making a final investment in someone else's dream. As Tyrion left the penthouse that evening, separation papers and property deed in hand, she felt something unexpected, not the triumph she had anticipated when planning Spencer's downfall, but a quiet closure. The red dress had awakened her to her own power, but perhaps it had awakened something in Spencer too, a long, dormant capacity for truth. Outside, Ryan waited, by his truck, concern giving way to relief when he saw her calm expression. Everything okay? He asked as she approached. Tyrion nodded, looking back at the building that had been both home and cage for so many years. Yes, she said with quiet certainty. I think it finally is. Chapter 9. Edge of Decision. 6 months after Spencer's guilty plea, Tyrion stood on the balcony of her family's beach house in Martha's Vineyard, watching waves crash against the shore. Fall had arrived, painting the landscape in amber and gold. She'd come here seeking perspective, distance from both the past and possible futures that seemed to pull her in opposite directions. The community center was rising steadily in Brooklyn, its distinctive curves and sustainable design already drawing attention in architectural circles. Tyrion's career had reignited almost overnight. The combination of the innovative project and, ironically, the publicity surrounding Spencer's downfall had thrust her back into professional relevance. Her phone, Buzzed with a text from Ryan. Missing you. Hope the solitude is bringing clarity. Call if you need anything. Ryan had respected her request for space, maintaining professional communication about the project while giving her room to sort through her complicated emotions. They'd grown closer over the months of working together, their connection deepening beyond professional admiration. But Tyrion had been hesitant to fully embrace what was developing between them, sensing she needed to resolve her past before stepping confidently into any new beginning. Another text arrived, this one from Jade. Thinking of you, sis. Remember what we talked about. Forgiving isn't the same as forgetting. It just means not carrying the weight anymore. Tyrion smiled, grateful for her friend's wisdom. Jade had been her constant through everything, the discovery of Spencer's betrayals, the formation of the sisterhood, the aftermath of his fall from grace. She'd supported Tyrion's need for this solitary retreat, while gently encouraging her to make peace with the past, whatever form that took. Inside the beach house, on the weathered pine dining table, sat a stack of letters, one for each day of the 2 weeks she'd been here. Spencer had begun writing to her after his sentencing, not asking for reconciliation or forgiveness, but offering something she hadn't expected: honesty, raw, unvarnished accounts of his failures, his regrets, the moments when he could have chosen differently. I realize now that I saw your beauty without appreciating your strength, he'd written in yesterday's letter. I wanted to possess what I should have partnered with. Perhaps that's the definition of foolishness, trying to control what should be set free. The letters weren't manipulative or self-pitying. They felt like genuine attempts at understanding both himself and the woman he had married but never truly known. Spencer was serving his reduced sentence at a minimum security facility, using his time, he wrote, to finally face himself without distractions or escapes. As the sun began to set, Tyrion's phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. Hello? She answered cautiously. Tyrion, it's Vanessa. Sorry to disturb your retreat, but I thought you should know. Spencer's mother is organizing a charity auction for arts education in underprivileged communities. She's requesting architectural services as one of the donation items. I believe it's his idea, though he can't be directly involved. Tyrion absorbed this information, unsurprised that Spencer would find ways to support causes that mattered to her, even from behind bars. It was consistent with his recent pattern, making amends without expectation. Thank you for letting me know, Tyrion said. I'll consider it. After hanging up, she wrapped herself in a sweater against the growing chill and walked down to the beach. The tide was coming in, waves erasing footprints in the sand, a fitting metaphor for her current state, watching as time gradually smoothed over the sharp edges of betrayal and hurt. As darkness fell, Tyrion built a driftwood fire in the stone pit facing the ocean. The dancing flames reminded her of another fire, the one that had consumed her marriage, leaving behind both ashes and opportunity for new growth. She pulled out her phone and found Ryan's number, hesitating before pressing call. He answered immediately. Tyrion, everything okay? Yes, she said, the word feeling true for perhaps the first time in months. I just wanted to hear your voice. I'm glad, he replied, the warmth in his tone carrying across the miles between them. The site misses you? I miss you. I miss you too, Tyrion admitted, the words bringing unexpected relief. I've been thinking about what you said before I left, about designing my own future. And, Ryan asked, a hint of hope in his voice. I think I'm finally ready to start drawing those blueprints, Tyrion said, smiling into the darkness. But there's something I need to do first. They talked for another hour, about the community center, about Ryan's daughter's soccer championship, about everything and nothing. When they finally said goodnight, Tyrion felt lighter, as if a decision had crystallized without her consciously making it. Inside the beach house, She found the last unopened letter from Spencer. Unlike the others, this one contained a single page with just a few lines. I saw our gallery before they took me away. The paintings, the photographs, our history. I realized something profound. The happiest moments of my life were watching you create, not when I was making millions or closing deals, but simply observing your passion bring beauty into the world. I hope you never stop building, Terrian, even if I'm not there to see it. Terrian folded the letter carefully and placed it with the others. Then she took out her sketchbook and began to draw, not buildings or spaces, but a dress, a red dress, that had awakened her to her own power, her own possibilities. As midnight approached, Terrian made two decisions. First, she would return to the city tomorrow, ready to embrace whatever future awaited her there. Second, she would visit Spencer before making any final choices about that future, not out of obligation or lingering attachment, but because true. Closure required facing the past with open eyes before fully stepping into the present. She fell asleep to the sound of waves, dreaming not of what had been lost, but of what might yet be built from the foundations of truth. Chapter 10. The Red. Dress returns. 1 year to the day after her disastrous birthday dinner, Terrian Walker stood in front of her closet, fingers brushing against the red silk dress that had changed everything. She hadn't worn it since that night, the night that marked both an ending and a beginning. Today felt right. A full circle moment. The community center was complete, a gleaming testament to sustainable design and community vision. Reviews in architectural journals had called it a triumphant return, and Walker's masterpiece, establishing her firmly back in the profession she'd once abandoned for a marriage built on illusions. Her phone chimed with a message from Jade. "He's been released this morning. Are you sure about this?" Terrian replied quickly, "Yes, it's time." Spencer had served 8 months of his reduced sentence, his cooperation and restitution efforts earning him early release. According to his lawyer, he would be returning to the penthouse today, the one remaining property not seized or sold, to repay his financial victims. Terrian slipped the red dress from its hanger, the silk cool against her skin as she put it on. The woman in the mirror was both familiar and transformed, still Terrian, but with eyes that had seen truth and shoulders that had carried both betrayal and new beginnings. Ryan had asked her not to go alone. "I respect what you need to do," he'd said last night over dinner at his Brooklyn brownstone, "but I don't trust him. I trust myself," Terrian had replied, squeezing his hand. "And that's enough." Their relationship had evolved gradually over the past year, professional respect deepening into friendship, then carefully blossoming into something more. Ryan had been patient, understanding her need to fully close one chapter before beginning another. His steady presence had become a cornerstone in her reconstructed life, but Terrian knew this final conversation with Spencer needed to happen without witnesses. The taxi dropped her at the familiar Manhattan building at precisely 7 o'clock. The doorman's eyes widened slightly at the sight of her, both because of her stunning appearance in the red dress and because everyone in the building knew the story of Spencer Wilson's fall from grace. "Good evening, Mrs. Wilson," he said, recovering. "Quickly, Ms. Walker," Terrian corrected gently. "Is he here?" "Yes, ma'am. Arrived about an hour ago." The elevator ride to the penthouse felt like traveling through time. How many times had she made this journey as Spencer's wife, the perfect corporate partner returning to their perfectly designed life? Now, she came as herself, Terrian Walker, architect, survivor, woman reclaiming her narrative. She knocked instead of using her key. The door opened almost immediately, revealing Spencer Wilson, thinner, his hair slightly longer, but standing straight in crisp trousers and a button-down shirt. As if determined to reclaim some semblance of his former self, His eyes widened at the sight of her in the red dress. "Tyrion," he breathed, a world of meaning in those 3 syllables. "May I come in?" she asked, maintaining the formality that felt necessary for this encounter. Spencer stepped aside, gesturing her into what had once been their shared home. The penthouse was largely unchanged, though the gallery he'd created remained in the former dining room, a testament to what had been lost, and perhaps in some small way found again through honest reckoning. "Would you like something to drink?" Spencer asked, the practiced host, despite everything. "Water, please," Tyrion replied, moving to the windows that had once represented her gilded cage. Now the city lights below seemed to offer possibility rather than confinement. Spencer returned with 2 glasses, handing her one. "The red dress," he observed quietly. "You wore it on purpose." "It seemed fitting," Tyrion acknowledged. "To end where it began. Is that why you're here, for an ending?" Tyrion took a measured sip of water. "I'm here for honesty, something we never truly had." Spencer nodded, accepting this. "I've had nothing but time for honesty lately, with myself, mostly." "And what did you discover?" Tyrion asked, genuinely curious about what 8 months of forced reflection had revealed to a man who had spent a lifetime avoiding introspection. "That I never deserved you," Spencer said simply. "Not because you're perfect, no one is, but because I never saw you clearly, not until that night in this dress." He gestured to the red silk, "and by then I'd already destroyed what we might have been." The raw honesty in his voice confirmed what his letters had suggested, that Spencer Wilson had finally encountered himself without masks or manipulations. "I didn't come for apologies," Tyrion said, moving toward the gallery room, Spencer following respectfully. "I came to tell you that I'm selling my half of the penthouse to you. The papers are with your lawyer." Spencer looked genuinely surprised. "You don't have to do that. This place is as much yours as mine, more, considering what I did." "I don't need it," Tyrion replied, studying the photographs of their early days together. "I've bought a place in Brooklyn, near the community center. It's where I belong now." Spencer absorbed this information, visibly processing its implications. "With Bennett," Tyrion met his gaze directly. "My relationship with Ryan is my own. But yes, he's part of my life now." To his credit, Spencer nodded without bitterness. "He's a good man. I looked into him before everything fell apart. Ethical business practices, community involvement. The opposite of me, essentially." "Not the opposite," Tyrion corrected gently, "just different choices." They stood in silence, surrounded by the visual history of what they'd once shared. Finally, Spencer spoke again. "Why the dress, Tyrion?" "Really?" She considered the question, understanding its deeper meaning. "To remind us both. You of what you lost when you stopped seeing me, and me of what I found when I started seeing myself clearly again." Spencer moved to the painting of her in the red dress, the moment of her awakening captured in oils and canvas. "It was never about the dress, was it? It was about the woman wearing it." "Yes," Tyrion agreed. "The woman who had always been there beneath the perfect wife, the supportive partner, the compromised architect. The woman who finally remembered her own worth." Tears glistened unexpectedly in Spencer's eyes. "I wish I could go back. See you, clearly from the beginning." "We can't go back," Tyrion said softly, "only forward." As the evening deepened around them, they talked with an honesty that had never existed in their marriage, about regrets and realizations, about the sisterhood that had brought down his empire, about the community center rising from the ashes, of his financial misdeeds. Not reconciliation, but something equally valuable, truth without agenda. When Tyrion finally prepared to leave, Spencer walked her to the door. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough with emotion, for the closure, for wearing the dress, for being brave enough to become yourself again, even when I tried to make you into someone else." Tyrion nodded, acknowledging the genuine gratitude. Then, with a small smile, she said the words she'd come to deliver. "Goodbye, Spencer." Outside, the May evening wrapped around her like a promise. Ryan waited at the corner as they'd arranged, respecting her need to handle this alone, but unwilling to be far if she needed him. "How did it go?" he asked simply, offering his hand. Tyrion took it, squeezing gently. It went as it needed to, an ending with honesty. As they walked toward the future she had designed for herself, Tyrion felt the red silk move against her skin, no longer a reminder of betrayal, but a symbol of awakening, of a woman who had reclaimed her power, her passion, her purpose. Later, that night, in the warmth of Ryan's embrace, Tyrion finally said the words that had been building within her for months. "I love you," she whispered, the truth of it simple and profound. His eyes, tender in the dim light, held hers. "I've been waiting to hear that." "I needed to finish one chapter before starting another," Tyrion explained. "To be whole on my own, before sharing myself with someone else." Ryan traced the curve of her face with gentle fingers. "And now?" Tyrion smiled, thinking of blueprints and foundations, of structures built to last. "Now we build something real, together." As midnight approached, Tyrion slipped from bed and retrieved something from her overnight bag, a jewelry box containing the diamond earrings Spencer had given her on their first anniversary. She'd kept them as a reminder of both love and lies. Now she placed them in an envelope with a note for her attorney. "Sell these, donate proceeds to the Community Center Arts Program." Returning to bed, she curled against Ryan's solid warmth. "Tonight I am yours," she whispered, the words both surrender and claiming. "You can enjoy how much you want." But they both knew the truth beneath those words, that Tyrion Walker had become fully her own, and it was from that place of wholeness that she now chose to share herself with him. The red dress hung in her closet, its purpose fulfilled. It had awakened her, not to betrayal or revenge, but to her own power, and that was a design that would never again be compromised.